Hey guys, okay, so everybody make sure to have water, paper, and something to write with ready.
This is a webinar about harnessing neuroplasticity to be the best that you can be. And my name is Dani, and I'm going to give you a quick disclaimer that some of the information sometimes triggers, especially parents, to think that they were not enough of a parent or a good enough parent, or they did things wrong. So please do not go there. We know how hard it is to ignore that and to judge ourselves, but we're really hoping that you can hear this information, because the coolest thing ever, we're going to talk about neuroplasticity and how the brain can change at any age. So it's super exciting. So, like I said, my name is Dani Alamoto. I'm one of the co-founders of In the Cortex. I have been reorganizing brains, myself included, for over a decade, and I am so excited that I have the best business partner in the world, Miss Paloma.
That's me, and right back at you. My name is Paloma Garcia, and I'm also a founder of In the Cortex. And I think you have been doing it for way more than a decade. I've been like maybe almost at a decade working with this, and I've done it with all kinds of different people, kids, adults, and it's just total passion for both of us. We've seen such amazing changes, and that's why we do what we do, why we're doing this webinar, to share everything with you guys. If anybody's interested in learning about our brain reorganization journey, you can check it out on our website, on our bios. It's pretty funny. So just to get everybody started, because we know a lot about the brain, we know that it's very important to prep your brain for listening and learning, and it's not always easy to sit in front of a screen for an hour and learn about something new. So with that said, we're going to start off with thinking caps, a wonderful brain gym exercise that is going to help us listen more clearly. So the way that you're going to start is, first we're going to check where our neck and tension is. So we're going to go turn our head all the way to the right, and make sure you notice how far you're going, how far you can turn, any tension in your neck and in your shoulders. And how does my voice sound? Does it sound clear? Does it sound a little bit far away? Just listen to my voice and to the sounds around you, and go to the other side, turn left, and same. We're going to notice the same things. It might sometimes be different in one ear than the other, the way that you listen. So now we're going to look forward, and this is the actual exercise. So thinking caps, you're going to take your index, the finger, and your thumb, and you're going to pinch the outside of your ear on the top, and you're just going to kind of like unroll your ears, starting at the top and then going all the way to the bottom. Ooh. So we're going to do this 3 times. And when you get to the lobes, get a little extra love, because that is the brain acupressure point. So we're going to go same back up to the top. We're going to do it 3 times. And what this is doing is it's bringing a lot of blood up to our neck, shoulders, and of course our ears. And that is why it helps us listening with both ears. Like I was saying, sometimes one ear is listening more than the other, believe it or not. It improves our auditory processing, auditory discrimination. It's going to relax our neck and our shoulders, and this helps with concentration and memory. So 3 times, awesome. So now let's do the check again. So turn all the way to the right and feel the difference. Whoa. I love this exercise. Anytime I do it, I'm just like, oh, it's my favorite. Turn to the left again. And you can also do it more than 3 times. If you feel like you need a little bit more, go ahead and just keep doing it. It's never going to be detrimental. And you can probably hear a little bit differently, right? I feel like I can listen a little bit more to like the echo of my voice. I don't know. It feels a little bit louder to me. So that's why we do this exercise.
And what was that, like 30 seconds? And you just completely changed how you're hearing the world around you. I love it. It's so cool. That's in our ebook that you'll get at the end of this too.
Yes.
All right. So we're going to use Sam as our person that we're going to talk about throughout this webinar about harnessing neuroplasticity. And Sam is going to be our character throughout the story. And we're going to give you an overview of Sam. So Sam is somebody that you probably all know. And he or she is someone who has difficulty following directions, You can say one thing, but the minute it's a multiple step questions, you lose him. Hates certain foods with a passion. He has difficulty paying attention, a hard time with transitions, difficulty falling asleep and waking up. He can't read or write at grade level. He can't wear certain clothes or textures because of the line on the sock or the tag in the shirt or the waistband on the pants. Tantrums daily, if not hourly. Difficulty sitting still. He or she has distorted fears. He's like afraid of the dark and spiders, birds, whatever, and difficulty bonding with other kids. This is the Sam that we all know and we all think about that has a lot of challenges in life. But
Sam also has another side to them. And those who know Sam really closely know all of these wonderful characteristics, right? They know that they're a loving sibling, talented, kind to other people, creative, helpful around the house, hilarious, is really good at learning things that they're interested in. They love sharing with other people. They're sweet, they're caring, they're thoughtful, and they're really, really smart. So parents, siblings, sometimes, grandparents, cousins, uncles that know Sam really well, they see this side of them. They see all the amazing, wonderful parts of their brain, but they're just like, I wish that there were a way that Sam could show this part, this wonderful Sam, to the world all the time, instead of showing the other one that's kind of like on the struggle bus.
And this is where neuroplasticity comes in for Sam. So instead of seeing Sam as the bad kid or always the yucky kid, if we just taught Sam about neuroplasticity, he or she would learn that, oh my gosh, I can change. That's basically what neuroplasticity breaks down to. You can read the slide here, and it just means that the brain can change. So the parts of Sam that are challenging and really hard and always overt and distracting from the daily life, those are just the behaviors that are shadowing over the real Sam, the Sam who really wants to try and show the world who he or she really is. So with the neuroplasticity, we can help Sam, and we can help Sam show who he really is.
And okay, so remember Sam, keep Sam in mind. If Sam reminded you of somebody you know, keep that person in mind. And now we're going to talk about the brain, starting with early neurological development. The human brain is designed to develop in a very specific way, in a certain way, that we're all programmed to develop our brain in that way. That's all humans are wired to do this. And that's been the case for hundreds and hundreds of years. But what has changed is that society has developed in a way that it might not always be super easy to get that early neurological development in, because we have things that are getting in the way of the way that we are supposed to move as babies. It's all happening through movement. All of this development goes through movement. And what's getting in the way of the movement? Wall-to-wall carpeting, swaddling, apparatuses like little baby, like the bouncy thingy and the playpen and the little thingy that makes them walk when they're really young. And what's happening there is that we're forcing children to do things before they're ready. When you put a little tiny, 3-month-old baby in a bouncy thing, they're starting to get awareness of their legs before they're actually even ready to walk, not just physically, but neurologically. So you're kind of helping them skip a little bit of that part of the development that's really important. So this is just to say, early neurological development starts in the uterus, and within the first year or 2 years of life is really what's going to set the foundation for the rest of the brain to develop.
So like Paloma said, it starts in utero. That means babies are moving in specific ways, getting themselves into position to come out into the world. And that is all done through primitive reflexes. Primitive reflexes are automatic instinctual movements that are necessary for survival. And they begin in utero. And so they also help designed to assist in birth in that first year of life. In our program, we teach you how to integrate these primitive reflexes, because what happens is there's a symphony. There's a whole group of them that need to work as a symphony, meaning one turns on, does its job, it gets integrated, and it can lie dormant so the next one can turn on, do what it's supposed to do, and then lie dormant. And they're all lying dormant so that way if there's a true threat coming at you, your brain and body can react the situation. So what does this mean? As a baby, you can't walk, you can't talk, you can't do much, but you rely on crying and you rely on screaming to get your needs met. And this means that if some noise or something comes and activates your system, your reflexes automatically turn on and they help you do what you need to do. Think about a baby, a sleeping, sweet little month-old baby, and a loud noise happens. What do? They immediately go into this flailed out position and then they retract back. So it's like, I'm alert, what's coming? And then they go, okay, no threat, I can go back. But then usually sometimes they might start crying and then mom or dad will come over and take care of them. So this is one example of how that reflex, it needs to do this enough times until the brain's like, okay, cool, I've got that, I can move on. And that's also called the moral reflex. But the problem is if we don't do enough of it as a baby, it stays on and active. So that means as you're moving along in your life, maybe somebody walks up behind you and you, oh my gosh, you scared me. And they're like, we're living in the same house together. Or maybe someone's driving and they cut you off. You're like, and you go into that altered state of the fight or flight. It's because your brain thinks those are threats, just as if when you were a baby. So the goal of our program is to help you learn how to integrate these, turn them off, so they're not constantly showing up and turning on throughout your day. And that's one part of what we address with our program. The next part we talk about is called the pons. This is the part of the brain that develops between 0 to 5 months of life. And this movement, it looks like when a baby is on their belly and they're moving from point A to point B, also known as tummy time. And we will share pictures with you later on that, but it's this part of the brain back here. It's the reptilian brain. It's the survival brain. We've all heard about this now as we're talking so much about fight, flight, freeze. That's this part of the brain. So with the reflexes and this, they work together. If this part of the brain as a baby does not get enough of the movement needed, what we're encoded to do, then we will possibly have some of these behaviors that you see on the screen on and happening in your day-to-day life. Constant and persistent anxiety. That was totally me. I was a super anxious person. Distorted views of reality because your brain is interpreting a totally different reality as if everything is survival. Response to situations with the fight, flight, or freeze response. Let's say your name gets called in class and you freeze and then you turn red. That's because your brain thinks that's a threat to be called on in school. Difficulty with reading, writing, and staying focused. It turns out that your eyes actually are connected to your brain and they develop at this point in life from 0 to 5 months. It sets the stage for what happens later. You're often a risk taker because you have a diminished sense of pain. You don't have an appropriate sense of danger. So you're often, maybe this is Sam, he's up on the top of the playground equipment and he's jumping off of it. He is getting hurt. He's just not feeling it. He doesn't get the feedback that that hurt and I shouldn't do that again. So what does Sam do? He does it again. Or maybe he rides his bike and he falls off and gets back up and he's like, hey, that was cool. Sam, we want you to know when things hurt because then you'll know maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. We all see the younger adolescents, boys that are really pushing their limits, taking really scary risks, riding their bikes without helmets. And you know what? One fall off the bike and that's it because this brain needs to be protected. Another thing, difficulty forming strong relationships. If you are in a state of survival, you can't be comforted because everything is a threat. You have to find the negatives. You can't just go into relaxed mode. Diminished sense of hot and cold temperatures. We all see those kids wearing hoodie sweatshirts when it's 100 degrees outside, or they're in the freezing cold water. Their teeth are chattering and they're like, no, I'm not cold. They're not getting the feedback. Diminished sense of hunger. This is the person who forgets to eat all day. So imagine Sam not eating because he'd rather be doing something else. By the end of the day, he's having an epic meltdown because his blood sugar is so low. Like I said, the lack of horizontal eye movements, the way your brain sees the world is very much related to where this part of the brain left off, and the inability to regulate heart rate, respiration, blood sugar, and hunger. Now, we can take any person, no matter the age you are, put you in a position and ask you to move. Every single time, the way you move right now will tell us where your brain left off in this part of development. And we can even meet people and go, we already know what percentage their brain is because of their behaviors. So if you're a super angry person, you're always raging and meltdowns and you're always just flighty, canceling on things, this part of the brain probably didn't get enough of development.
Exactly. And this can stay on way past childhood. You can be an adult with a disorganized brain. And Dani and I always say we've never met somebody that has a fully organized brain. So odds are most of the people walking around the street outside your house right now have a disorganized brain. Anyway, the next part that develops when we're babies is the midbrain. And that's when babies are crawling on their hands and knees, as you can probably imagine. You probably did it when you were a baby, or if you have a baby around, you've seen this movement before probably. And the midbrain is a super important part of our brain because it helps us understand how to process things. It's like a filter for the rest of the brain. So it tells your brain, this is important right now, and this can wait till later. Of course, if you think about that, it's also related to the production of dopamine, which has a lot to do with how we prioritize the things that we do and how much energy and how much we like and we enjoy the things that we're doing, right? The midbrain is also a filter when it comes to organization and prioritizing tasks, but also when it comes to your senses. All of your senses go through your midbrain before they go to your cortex to process. So the midbrain is the one that's saying, maybe don't listen to that right now, listen to my voice as I'm talking to you because you're listening to this webinar, right? And that's a really important thing if you think about it throughout your entire life, because if you're constantly getting distracted by every single thing that you're feeling, or your senses are feeling every single thing at the same level, it's going to be really, really hard for you to get on with your day-to-day life. And that's going to get in the way. So these are some of the signs of an underdeveloped midbrain. Poor filtering and prioritization of incoming stimuli. So like I was saying, if you're listening to my voice, but then there's also some music in the background or somebody's having a conversation next to you, your brain doesn't really know what to listen to. I feel like that happens to people sometimes in like crowded restaurants and coffee shops where you're talking to somebody, but you can't stop listening to whatever's going on the table next to you. Difficulty sitting still. That's a really important midbrain function because your midbrain is connected to your vestibular system, which we will talk about a little bit later, which is the one that helps you regulate your relationship with gravity. So if your vestibular system is underdeveloped, it's going to be really hard for you to sit still. So you're always going to be finding ways to move. And we'll talk about this later as well, but we all find ways to compensate. So you might not notice that somebody is moving, but you're at a meeting and somebody's like picking up the pen and they move their phone and then they shuffle their papers and then they do their notebook and then they drink some water and they're just constantly moving because they've gone through years and years and years of having to figure out how to keep their brain active while they need to move all the time. Difficulty making transitions. I'm sure you guys can think of some examples of that. Always hungry and thinking about food. This is also related to the creation of dopamine. And when it's a little bit off, you might be getting a little bit too much dopamine from certain foods. Getting stuck on thoughts or perseverating or getting like a song stuck in your head. That's something that used to happen to me all the time. I mean, it still happens because this is my brain, but like getting songs stuck in my brain, I would have songs in my brain for weeks. Like I would wake up with a song in my brain. I'd be like, oh my God, please, I can't listen to it again. And so that can also go with thoughts, right? Things that you think about. Maybe somebody said something in a funny way and you just keep thinking about it. That is always a midbrain related. Poor balance and coordination, of course, also related to the vestibular system. Poor articulation of words, needing to touch everything in sight. That's kind of similar to the person that can't sit still, but it's a different sensory system. So the person who is, you go to a restaurant and they're touching the things that are in the middle, the salt shaker and the little sugar packets, and they're touching this. And then if somebody's phone is there, they're touching the phone and they're touching the pen and they're touching it. That's your proprioceptive system, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but that's what tells you where you are in space. So once again, people that are touching everything in sight are usually compensating for a proprioceptive system that is underdeveloped. Tactile sensitivities. This was a huge one for me, like tags, certain types of clothes, even food, certain types of foods. Like I always say, I was a Mexican who didn't eat avocados, which is insane. Now I love them, eat them all the time. But just that texture in my mouth, I was like, nope, I cannot deal with it. Even thinking about it would just get me like, "Ugh." So, a lot of the time picky eaters or people who have very restricted diets, it's coming from this tactile sensitivity. It's not always just that they're not wanting to eat it. It's sometimes it feels bad for them to eat certain things. Tags in the shirts, that just totally midbrain related. Getting easily distracted. Of course, if your filter is off, how are you going to know what to focus on, right? Like you're going to get distracted by other things because your filter doesn't know what's more important now and what isn't. Eyes teaming. So the pons is related to the eyes moving together, but the eyes looking at the same point at the same time is related to your midbrain, which is really important if you think about it for things like eye contact, reading, writing. Your eyes need to be looking at the exact same point at the same time. Bladder and bowel control, very much a midbrain relationship. Again, if you think about the filter, that if you're not able to filter the signals that are coming from your organs, then it's going to be hard for you to control when you get to that point of like, whoa, I need to go right now. And difficulty hearing and understanding sound. So not just what am I paying attention to, but how am I processing and how am I understanding everything I hear? Because it's one thing to listen, but it's another thing to understand and process what you just heard.
That's a lot. So guess what? We also talk about not only how do you develop the pons, how do you develop the midbrain if you missed any part of that development, but we also talk about the sensory system. And Paloma is going to go ahead and share those with you right now.
So the sensory systems are, we all think that we have 5 senses, but we actually have 9. So sight, touch, smell, taste, hearing, we've all heard of those before, but our vestibular system is, like I was talking about earlier, our relationship with gravity. So where am I? Where's my body and my head specifically in terms of the ground? That's also how we're able to adjust to different positions, to different speeds, right? That's how you're able to stay awake or aware, even if you've been sitting somewhere or in the same position for a long time. The vestibular system is in our inner ear, and it's these little hairs that kind of help us that kind of help us process what's going on around us in terms of the gravity. So that's why people that have difficulties with their vestibular system are sometimes going to compensate, right? By moving. If I don't understand where my body is in terms of gravity right now, then I'm just going to move. So I turn on those little hairs and then I'm good. And I can listen and I can do what's expected of me. The next one is your proprioception, which is where is my body in space? Literally, where does my arm end and space begin, right? Where does my arm end and this wall begin? This is also when we see people that have difficulties with proprioception, it's usually people that either have a hyperactive or hypoactive. So it's either like the risk takers, like we were talking about earlier with Sam jumping off of the jungle gym thingy. And they're usually the people that give really, really strong hugs, or like they're constantly hurting people without noticing other people, that you shake their hand and you're like, oh, please, this is my hand. And they just like squeeze it. Or it's the opposite. It's people that don't like to be touched at all. They have really a difficult time with certain textures, with certain places, like being in a certain situation in terms of where they're sitting or where their body is located can be really hard for them. Then we have our interoception, which is the dialogue between your organs and your brain. That's literally it. How is everything going? And that's really important because that's how you're getting signals from your body about what to do, what's important, what's not, and what you should act on in the moment, right? And neuroception is the system that tells us whether or not we're safe. Am I safe? So our neuroception is constantly scanning our environment to make sure that we're in a safe situation. And if we're not, we're going to get an alarm. So think about all of this when you think about a brain like that of Sam, right?
So Sam is being asked to start at the top. Sam, I need you to do these assignments. I need you to use all your cortex, that amazing brain that's supposed to only be used for higher thinking. And we're demanding so much of Sam at this cortex level, but we're not addressing that the root, the foundation of what Sam needs in order to show his higher thinking is not in place. He is compensating. She is compensating all day long. And by the time you ask them to perform, You just can't do it. We always give the example, if you imagine you go into a room and the teacher says, okay, bend your nose in half. And a lot of people will sit there and go, I'm not wired to do that. Like, what does that mean? But what if everybody in the room could do it and you couldn't? What if everybody could effortlessly bend their nose in half, figure out a way to make it work, and you were the one that couldn't do it? It's the same thing for Sam. We're asking Sam to do something that he's not wired to do. So no matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, we have to address the root first. And there's so many modalities, and they're not bad. We're just saying that they go through the cortex. They ask you to do things like vision therapy, OT therapy, speech therapy, that's going through the cortex. What we're addressing is going through the root, so that way everything is automatic, doing what it's supposed to do, so you can build upon it. And this is such an important thing to think about. Even if you take, we talk about, you have a chronological age each year. This is your chronological age. It gets older and older, right? And what we're being asked of, or what we're demanding from you, is supposed to be in line with how old you are. But the way the brain works is the minute you stand up and start walking. So whether if you stand up and start walking at 9 months or 8 months, whatever, if it's really early, our society thinks, oh, you're really advanced. Actually, it means that's where the brain stopped developing. The only way to develop the brain is by doing these movements. And so if you every year you're getting older, but your brain is wired here, you're going to have a really big gap. And that means these are all the compensations that you have to create throughout your day just to get by. And then what happens at the end of the day? You come home, you're exhausted, but now there's homework, or now there's this, or there's this. And there's so much being asked of these kids, even ourselves, adults. We're out of gas. We're working way harder than we need to. So what we do at ITC is we help put in that foundation. So that way you have the entire foundation in place, and now you can build upon it.
Exactly. And just really quick, those compensations can stop working at age 3 or 4, maybe 5. If they can stop working at age 17, at 25, 35, 45, and you're somebody who's having a midlife crisis. So we are really good at compensating because we are being, there's so much demand put on us by society and by the world that we live in, that we are automatically going to find whatever it takes to fit in and to do what is expected of us. Then how hard is it sometimes when you think about this, and when you think about Sam, or whoever you're thinking is your Sam, how hard are they working every single day? And it doesn't matter what age they are. We both did our brain work when we were old. I mean, I was 24, you were like 18, right?
Well, I was a little bit older. I was in my 20s. And like you said, the compensation, it was, when is your breaking point? So mine was when I went off to college, when I now had to juggle all these balls in the air on my own. I didn't have my parents to help support and enable me. And so that was when I had my complete meltdown and couldn't do it anymore. So let's get your brains active. What you're going to do, this is why we asked you to have paper handy. You're going to take your paper and you're going to write your name, just your first name right here at the top of the paper. So go ahead and try that. And just notice, how did it feel? How does it look? Whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll come back to that. And your paper's horizontal for a reason. You're going to start in the middle and you're going to draw what's called the lazy 8. And it's pretty obvious that it's a lazy 8 because it's an 8 laying down like it's sleeping. But what's happening here is it's connecting left and right sides of your brain. So you're going to start in the middle of your paper and you're going to go up to the left and back to the middle and keep going around just like this. When you go up to the left first, it's going into your right brain, which is your emotional brain. So it's immediately starting to turn on your right brain, calm you down, and get your brain to get connected back into the left side and bring it into balance. So now if there's something emotional happening, you're calming your brain down. This is an amazing thing to do when you are listening to a lecture or a webinar or something where you really want to retain the information. Draw this because it's connecting left and right sides of your brain. And you can go ahead and switch hands. You're still in the middle, still going up to the left. Notice this is also the direction we go to create all of our lowercase letters. Think about the lowercase a, it always goes up to the left. And this is just a really important movement. So now You can do it for like 8 times on one hand, 8 times on the other. You can draw it on paper. You can draw it on your leg. You can draw it in the air. You can draw this anywhere. It's really our favorite tool. I mean, we have a lot of really favorites, but this one's really, it's a cool party trick too, because you can be with someone and they have an idea on the tip of their tongue. You say, oh, draw a lazy 8 like this. And you have to breathe and be calm to do it. And all of a sudden that'll come into you. If you're trying to think of someone's name and you're like, oh, I know the name. I always take out my hand and just draw a lazy 8 on it. And then I'm like, oh, it was Veronica. I knew it. I don't know any Veronicas right now, but go back now and write your name again. And did it feel any different? So you're writing your name again the second time. And usually you feel that it's a little bit smoother. It's more effortless. You're not holding the pen as tight and your brain's in a relaxed state. So this is literally taking your left and right sides of your brain, bringing it together. We have this in our ebook that you'll get at the end of this webinar. We also included this really cool brain breakdown where you could see how does your lazy 8 show up? It really gives a good snapshot of what your brain is up to. So go ahead and check that out later. And we're going to go into more.
It's going to be in our ebook. So if you guys want to check out kind of the interpretation of the lazy 8, that'll be a little chart that's in your ebook. And wait, there's more. Not to overwhelm you, but we want to talk about the subconscious. So this is another really crucial part of our program. I'm not going to say it's our favorite part, but we really like it. So did you know that our conscious mind is only responsible for about 5% of what we do in our day-to-day life? That leaves 95% of our life being lived according to subconscious programs that are beyond our conscious control because they're subconscious, right? They're just there. I'm sure everybody here has had that moment when you're driving, you're driving home from work and you totally space out. Maybe you're singing, maybe you're thinking about something, blah, blah, and then you're like, whoa, I got here. I didn't even notice I was driving. I mean, okay, great. Good thing I didn't crash into somebody, because it's so ingrained in your brain, right? Especially when you work somewhere for a really long time. And you didn't have to think about it. You just did it. It's a program that was kind of running automatically, right? And that happens because we have beliefs that we acquire about the world throughout our life, especially in the first 7 years of life, that become subconscious. And why do they become subconscious? Because our brains are in basically an almost hypnotic state in the first 7 years of life. It's called theta. So we absorb whatever we learn about the world in those 7 years, and they become subconscious parts of our brain without us even knowing, because it's subconscious. Hello. So this is the reason why a lot of us might get trapped in certain patterns, certain cycles of behavior where you're just like, why did I do that again? Or you look back at something that you did and you're like, that's happened to me so many times and I keep doing the same thing. Why do I keep responding the same way? Why do I keep acting in the same way, even though I know that it's not ideal or it might not be the most effective thing for me this moment? Well, it's hard to understand, but the way that we look at it is through the neuroplasticity. We look at everything through the lens of neuroplasticity. And we love this quote by Dr. Bruce Lipton. I'm going to read it. Becoming aware of the subconscious source of our behavior gives us an opportunity to change our lives by rewriting the programs of limitation or the things that interfere with us. If we change those programs, we are empowered, free to express the wishes and desires of the conscious mind. So there is a way that we can get rid of those subconscious beliefs that are maybe holding us back and make sure we get some really good, productive, positive beliefs in there.
So what is a reconnect? And in our program that's 12 weeks long, on week 4 is when we start to dive into this. The first 3 weeks is all about getting you out of survival mode. And then week 4, we start to really go into programs and what is holding you back. And here at ITC, we do not believe that there are victims in this world. We do understand that we are all given certain things in life that we don't really want anymore, but it's our current responsibility to take care of them, heal from them, work through them, reparent yourself, whatever you want to call it. But we have a tool that can shift whatever subconscious belief you have right now in 3 minutes or less. And we know that sounds like, whoa, super salesy and like, how is that even possible? But it is. It's incredible. When you give the brain and body what it needs, you see incredible magic happen. There's a lot of stuff right now out there that's talking about doing meditations for hours and you can change things. We think those are great, but they're not always practical, especially if you have kids and especially if you are busy working and you have a busy life. So our program is designed to weave into your current life and make it super doable. And that's just what these reconnects do. You can take a moment and you can completely shift yourself and come back to a situation just minutes later and feeling so much better. So the reconnect looks at why you're activated, helps you shift how you want to feel instead. And it's a tool that we love. And we are going to put in our ebook also a thing called PACE. And I think we're going to do that.
Yeah, we're going to do that now. We're going to do PACE. But just really quick before we go on about the subconscious beliefs, just for an example, because we've all been thinking of Sam this whole time, right? We're thinking of Sam or whoever you've identified as Sam. Think about Sam having so much trouble in their day-to-day lives, in their school, in their social life, with their parents and siblings maybe, and think about what kind of programming they're going to get in their brain, once again, without them knowing, without their parents even knowing, right? If they're asked to basically bend their nose in half and they can't do it, then they're probably going to think that they are less than everybody else, or that they're not worth something, or that they're not smart. All these things that we can reconnect. And those are beliefs that would go with Sam throughout their entire life, right? So that's why we also believe so much in the reconnect, is because you can do it at any age. You can do it as a child, and you can get your body and your brain connected in a way that's more effective for you and that makes you be the best person you can possibly be.
It's completely true. I have changed my take on the world in the years that I've been working on the emotional aspect of being activated, and I can change me. I can't change anybody else in my life. All I have power and control over is me. And so the more that I have situations that come to me, I look at them as, how is it happening for me? How can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? And you're going to find out so much about yourself. Many people say that they've done years and years of therapy and haven't had the same breakthroughs. And we're not saying we're therapy. We're just saying that there's really simple tools out there that you have in you right now that you just need to harness and learn how to bring into your life to make these amazing changes. And PACE is one of our favorite things. We've pulled a lot of things from Brain Gym today, but that's a pretty well-known program out there that we've been trained in. And we can share with you this really awesome tool called PACE.
So PACE can take anywhere from like 30 seconds to like 5 minutes. It all depends on how much you want to dedicate to it. And it puts your brain in what's called a super learning state, which is the same as the theta state. So this is a really good thing to do when you're ready, when you want to kind of put your best foot forward. Okay, so we're going to start with the first step, which is drinking water. That's why we asked you to have a glass of water. And look at Dani. You're going to inhale and exhale with the water still in your mouth. That's going to put more oxygen into it, which is what we need. Next we're going to do our brain button. So you're going to put one hand, going to make it into a C, okay? You're going to go to your clavicle, and right under your clavicle, you have two little kind of dips, and you're going to put your fingers there. You can do it like this. You can tap, or you can even do your whole hand if that feels more comfortable, whatever works for you. And your other hand goes on your belly button, okay? And we're just going to massage there, tap, whatever works for each person. I'm going to do it maybe if you're doing it with kids, I suggest that you count. So that just makes it a little bit easier for them to process it. And then you're going to switch hands. And I usually do, when I'm doing with kids, I do like a 10 count. With me, I genuinely just kind of feel it out. I think, Dani, you do the same. You just feel like whenever it's complete, you move on to the next step, even whether it be the water, brain buttons, cross crawl, or the hookups and save buttons. So the cross crawl is just that. It's opposite hand, opposite knee. You can get as creative as you want. You can do it sitting, you can do it standing, you can do it behind. I know you can't really see my feet here, but you can do it behind your legs. It doesn't have to be the front, doesn't have to be the knees. You can do a lazy 8 as a cross crawl. You can do what Dani's doing, where you're going with your arms across your body. Genuinely anything that works for you in the moment that is crossing your midline, that is what you want to be doing. The next step is called the brain hookup. And what you're going to do is you're going to cross one leg over the other. So if I'm crossing my right leg right now, then you're going to take your arms and stick them out in front of you. You're going to cross the same arm over the other. So if it's my right leg, it's my right arm. Have your thumbs point toward the ground, interlace your fingers, and then bring it up into your chest. You can also do this when sitting, whatever works for you. And this whole time you want to make sure that your tongue is on the roof of your mouth. I don't know if you can see that, but your tongue is glued to the roof of your mouth. This is a really calming position, and this on its own can be really, really helpful for stress relief or for relieving some tension if you're feeling a little bit tense in certain situations. We usually do both sides, but you can also just do one side. Again, it depends on what your body wants. So we're going to do the same left leg, left arm, interlace and bring it in. Again, if you're doing it with kids, they can like lean against the wall. They can do it sitting down. If your legs are crossed, that also counts, like crisscross on the floor. If you're doing it with a small child, you can have them hug themselves if the whole interlacing is a little too much. And then the last one is called the save button. So what you're going to do is bring your fingertips together and you're imagining this is your brain. Okay, the two hemispheres coming together. Just that visual is really powerful. And you're going to tap each finger, starting with the pinky. You're going to tap each one, go to the next one. What's it? The annular, middle, pointer, and thumb. Okay. And that is pace. And I love pace. It makes me feel awesome. It makes me feel super prepared. I usually do it before any sort of like a class or anything, even like workout classes. If you do pace before yoga, you're going to push the boundaries of what you thought you could do in yoga. Seriously, it's really awesome.
Pace before anything.
Before anything, it's true. Before anything. So we're going to have you guys reach out with any questions via email. And we want to talk a little bit about our program. So we're sending you the ebook today with the three tools that we talked about. And we want to make sure that you understand that this is only one tiny, tiny, tiny part of what our program has. Our program is a 12-week program that goes into all the brain reorganization and all the emotional components of your brain. So we start by, like Dani said, getting you out of survival mode and giving you the movements to do that. Then we go into the emotional component. We work with the pons, and then we do with the midbrain. And throughout the whole time, we're integrating the primitive reflexes. So you're working on all different parts of your brain throughout the whole program. It's all movement based too. So it's not anything that it's basically anybody can do it anywhere, anytime. It's just about understanding how to do the movement. There are tons of modifications, and you can always reach out to us for any clarifications on the movements. So about that, you have 20 minutes of movement per day maximum throughout the whole 12 weeks. Usually, honestly, it's like 10 minutes in the beginning because we want to ease you into it. And you have specific strategies to weave it into your day. So if you're somebody who says, oh, I cannot commit to 20 minutes a day of doing this, that's fine. We have tons of different tips and tricks for you to make this program seamlessly fit into whatever routine you already have going in your life. We also have so all the way that we walk you through that is through our online program, which is videos, PDFs, journal prompts. We have big on journaling. We have a huge set of journal prompts that is amazing because it brings you to a different kind of awareness of yourself. And that's all the online component. But the way that we're running our program is in groups. So we start the next group on August 24th. We still have a few spots open if you want to join. And we do it together for a few reasons. One is because people usually kind of respond very well to guidance. And Dani and I are personally guiding every single one of the members. And two, because you get accountability. So if you're dealing with a disorganized brain, it might be a little bit hard for you to go and do the whole program on your own. But if you have that accountability of the group, it'll likely be more easy for you to stick to it. So we have weekly Zoom calls where the whole group gets together. We talk about what we've learned in the week. We give you guys extra tips, extra information, a lot more depth on the things that you're learning in the program. And of course, we open it up to questions you can get as personal as you want, or you can get as not personal as you want. We have a few members that just join, they just listen, they don't turn on the camera, don't turn on the microphone, they're just there to process the information. And we also have a dedicated group chat for the entire group. So if you ever come up with any questions or ideas or anything that you need to consult with us about in between calls, you'll always have that open to you. It's going to be actually 13 weeks. We have one extra week because we do a week of just the intro and just talking about all the concepts. And that's the way it works. We have a promo code here for you. Yeah, 10% off. Just use promo code harness. And please, we know this is really dense information. We know it's a lot. So if you have any question, reach out to us via email. That's the easiest way. Dani and I both respond to every email personally, because we want to make sure that we're getting the information out there. You can text us, you can go to our website, go to our Facebook, TikTok, if you're into that. We are viral. So, but that's it. Please
let me add. Sorry, I want to end it with one thing. So we talked a lot about Sam and the mess that Sam's in. And a lot of times parents come to us because they have a Sam, but parents who do the program, they realize they have to go put the oxygen mask on themselves first before they can go help their child. So if that's you, you're going to benefit. The entire family benefits. If you're not a Sam and if you're like, I feel like life is kind of fine, we have yet to meet anyone who has a completely organized brain where life is completely easy, or the tools to work themselves through whatever. And we all have tools out there and available. Are they healthy tools? Are they productive tools? Well, we can assure you through our program that you learn things that you're going to want to tell all your friends about. So share our webinar with whoever you know who might be interested in doing this with you, because then you have a buddy and an accountability program that's already built into this, but then also have a friend that you can do it with. And it's the most fun thing ever. And soon everybody will be creeping and crawling in this world. And then you'll see that this world will be a better place. So spread the word for us. Thank you so much for being here and listening to this webinar. We really, really appreciate it. We hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.